Welcome. Today in this video we're going to explore some reasons why you shouldn't move to Brazil. Now, I've been living in Brazil for over 11 years. I'm loving it. I wouldn't change it, but I'm going to give you some reasons perhaps why it might not be right for you. Don't move to Brazil if you're in regular need of retail therapy. In Brazil, you will pay more for imported electronics, designer clothing, toys, those kind of things. You know, even in the UK, which isn't the cheapest place in the world, some things are significantly cheaper than they are in Brazil. Where you win living in Brazil is day-to-day cost. Housing, food, going out for meals, lifestyle. That will cost you significantly less than, let's say, Europe, United Kingdom, United States. And one tip as well, when you need to renew, if you're going to live in Brazil and you need to update your phone, get a new notebook, whatever it is, my tip is get that when you go back to your home country to visit, or if you've got someone visiting you, get them to bring those goods for you. Now, if you are a foodie, you may struggle in Brazil, principally with the lack of global foods. Let me just put that in context. One of the things I found myself missing living in Brazil is culinary such as Indian food, Thai food. You don't have the same variety as you would in big cities in the UK, in other places in Europe, and in the US, okay? However, you do have great food in Brazil, particularly meat, fresh fruit, vegetables. There are a lot of regional dishes as well, but if you're used to a variety of global foods, you don't quite have the same selection in Brazil. So that's something to think through. But it's always a good reason as well when you do go back home to visit family and things to go out for a nice meal. Don't move if you love perfect organization. Brazil is known for its bureaucracy, its paperwork. Sometimes processes don't run as smoothly as you would hope. You have to revisit certain places to resolve things. Things have definitely got a lot better since I first started living in Brazil 11 years ago. You can do a lot more online now. Once you understand how things work in Brazil, life does get a lot easier. Thing would be, don't move if you need everything to happen on time. Deliveries, trade people, services being promised to be done by a certain time. There can be a lot of slide in Brazil. One of the things I would say is the south of Brazil, generally people are better with timing. It feels a bit more European, and I think that's due to the colonization of the south region, the sort of European formation. However, it wouldn't compare to punctuality or timing in other places. You do need patience, and maybe you learn more about yourself in the process. So don't move to Brazil if career progress is your only goal. Brazil has lower wages compared to Western countries. That's not true for all jobs, but for a lot of jobs, that is. You have a more volatile economy. But what I would say is that if you're an entrepreneur, Brazil actually could have a lot of opportunities for you. It's a market that's less saturated. It's a developing market that produces lots of opportunities. And certainly that's been my story, starting a business that's become successful, that's become worthwhile, and I wouldn't change anything about that. So don't move to Brazil if you hate hot weather. It's a tropical country, tropical in places, subtropic further south. So hot weather is part and parcel of Brazil. But compare that with the UK, Europe, northern part of United States and in Canada. Actually, it's not a bad climate to be year round. And also in the south of Brazil, it is cooler. and you do get cooler cities, particularly in higher altitude in Brazil as well, and you get more variations with seasons further down south. So I would say in Florianopolis, where I live, I wouldn't say the heat was unbearable in the height of summer, and you've also got that ocean breeze as well, so I quite enjoy it. Now, another thing you might find yourself missing living in Brazil is distinct seasons. I certainly had that when I lived in the northeast of Brazil. It just seemed a little odd that it was pretty much the same all year round. You even got fed up of constant hot weather and missed the cold. So it's something to be aware of, and particularly if you love that kind of Christmassy feeling. So Christmas always set to winter and great winter weather and that whole build up. It's not the same in Brazil. However, I would say you get a good balance if you live in the south of Brazil, particularly in Santa Catarina, as there is variation. So you do have a great summer and you have really good hot weather most of the year round. It cools off for about 3 months in the winter time. That can vary. If we're talking degrees Celsius in the summer, it can reach highs. I've seen it reach 30 degrees. Usually it's kind of low 20s or high teens, but occasionally it can drop down. So you do get a balance, but you don't quite have the same distinct seasons as you would do living somewhere like the UK, Northern Europe, or more north in the United States, and of course in Canada. The thing I'd add as well would be, don't move to Brazil is proximity to family is everything, particularly in the south of Brazil. So, for example, from the UK, Brazil is from London to Sao Paulo, that's an 11 to 12 hour flight, and from North America it can be quite far as well. And that's different if you're in the northeast of Brazil. That reduces the flight time, but distance and cost can sometimes make it less appealing to go back and forth or for people to visit you. So there can be a sensation of being further away. However, saying that as well, in Brazil you feel far removed from a lot of geopolitical stuff that's happening in the world, some of the tensions that people are seeing currently in Europe, you know, even some of the craziness that's happening in politics all over the world, North America, Middle East. So there is that sense of being somewhere that's far removed from all of that. Move if you value convenience over lifestyle. Next day delivery, reliable transport, better consumer protection, easier returns, better online services. Now, saying that, Brazil, it's actually not too bad. We have Amazon that works well in Brazil, even importing stuff from abroad on Amazon as well. Mercado Livre, it's like the equivalent to eBay as a big shopping place, and other online services work well. In transport, there is good public transport, but it may not always, all these different services may not always reach a kind of expectation that you would have from being somewhere like the UK, Europe, etc. Brazil, in terms of lifestyle, is a place where you can spend less time rushing through life and learn to go a bit more with the flow. Also, don't move to Brazil if you want long summer evenings. In Brazil, you're closer to the equator in most places. Further north you are, closer to the equator. What that means is actually it gets dark and gets light consistently at the same time. Now, the further south you go in Brazil, you have longer days in the summer and shorter days in the winter, but you don't have the variation like you would, let's say, in the UK. So I'm currently in the UK, it's mid-August, it's 7:30 in the evening, and these summer evenings in the UK are really lovely for going to parks, pubs, being out and about. And typically in Brazil, as I say, even in the summer, the nights draw in. In Florianopolis, the longest day you'll get is to about 7:30 in a summer's evening, and that's not bad. But of course, the further north you go, you know, Sao Paulo and particularly northeast, you're going to have it's going to get dark very quickly, and that was something that really used to throw me when I lived in the northeast of Brazil. You'd have these hot, very bright summer days. It would get to about 5 o'clock in the afternoon And very soon after, it just got pitch black very quickly. So if you miss long summer days, then perhaps Brazil isn't the best place for you year round. However, what you do get in Brazil is you get a consistently better climate, and you don't have those cold, short winter days where you go out to either work or school or whatever it is. You don't go out in the dark and return in the dark. Don't move if you can't live without being close to lots of big events, whether those would be sporting events, concerts, theatre, that kind of thing. Brazil does get world events. In the last 12 years, it's hosted both the World Cup, the football World Cup, and the Olympics. It has a big domestic football league as well. But in terms of, big events and things, we don't get as much volume in Brazil as other places. Now, my daughter's gone off to places like Rio for Taylor Swift concerts and that kind of thing, but maybe it's not as accessible and as plentiful as it would be in other parts of the world. Also, don't expect Brazil to be cheap everywhere. Some things are going to cost more than you expect. Premium real estate in premium areas can be high. Imported cars, other imported goods. So depending on the type of lifestyle you want to live in Brazil, there's a possibility of getting a lot of bang for your buck, living very well, but in certain places, in certain locations as well. And if you want to access certain consumer goods, there's going to be a price on that. Don't move to Brazil if you're uncomfortable learning another language. Now, that's not to say you cannot get by and survive not speaking Portuguese, particularly in big cities. However, learning Portuguese really enhances your life in Brazil. It's going to influence your friendships, business opportunities, dating, many scenarios. If you don't learn, in certain circumstances, you're always going to depend on someone who can translate for you as well. And in one sense, Portuguese can be complicated grammatically, but you don't need to be a fantastic linguist to pick up Portuguese. I always say, if you throw enough mud at a wall, some of it will stick. And if you're willing to put in the work, you'll make progress. And I find that Brazilian people are very patient when you're learning Portuguese, when you make the effort to speak Portuguese. Perhaps much more patient than people can be in the UK of someone who doesn't speak English fluently at times as well. So definitely, if you're thinking of spending significant time in Brazil, it's really worth learning the basics, and from there trying to get as fluent as possible. Also, don't move if safety is something that you are constantly worried about. It is worth saying that Brazil isn't just one country. I like to say to people, there are many Brazils inside Brazil. So you will find places that are very safe, and there are places that are not so safe, and you just need to be extra cautious and careful when you're in these places. If you're considering moving to Brazil, my advice is research well the areas where you intend to move to. So don't move to Brazil if you love cold weather activities. There's no ski in Brazil. You're not going to get a white Christmas. However, saying that, in the south of Brazil, there are some cold places like Gramado in Rio Grande do Sul, which a lot of Brazilians go to experience winter weather. Certainly by North American standards, European standards, it's mild winter weather. Sometimes you may get a powdering of snow. If you really want cold weather activities in Brazil, you're looking at going somewhere like Chile in the mountains, if you want to go skiing, or places in Argentina as well. Don't move to Brazil if you hate uncertainty. You'd have to deal with exchange rates, Brazilian politics, regulation changes. It's not Switzerland in that sense. However, the world is in a time of flux and change, and uncertainty. So maybe we delude ourselves that some places are more stable and certain than others. Now, having said all that, I've chosen Brazil over the UK, and I have no plans of moving back to the UK. What I found is what I've gained living in Brazil, for me, it's much better than the benefits and the convenience of living in my home country. And that has been the case for many people who've relocated to Brazil from different countries. That doesn't mean that we're immune from frustrations, from headaches, that we wouldn't like some things to be different, but there's so many good things about being in Brazil. You know, I can give up certain things such as the convenience, the quick pace of things here in exchange for a lifestyle that is just so superior. I can give up eating curry and other dishes more regularly and easily be content with an amazing juicy steak that is plentiful and a lot cheaper than I would pay in the UK and many other places. Also, I can give up having easy access to consumer goods, cheaper prices, in exchange for being in a country that is absolutely beautiful, for enjoying sunsets on the beach, amazing walks in nature. Also give up the predictable and the safe of being somewhere like the UK in exchange for the sense of adventure and the opportunities that present themselves to me in Brazil. Those who thrive in Brazil tend to be people who have a sense of adventure, entrepreneurial types as well. Now, if you're considering relocating to Brazil, I run a company called Rocks Investment that helps internationals invest safely and securely in the state of Santa Catarina, and we also help out with the visa process as well. So do feel free to get in touch. Details are below.